All right, back to football. Last week, obviously, an off week for us. I got a chance to really work on a number of things that needed improvement within our team as many get an opportunity to look at that off week. And I think, earlier in the season, it wasn't really a recovery week for us as much as it was shore up some things offensively, defensively, and special teams. I thought we had a great week. Gave the guys the opportunity on Friday and Saturday to recovery, and then we were back at it with meetings and weight training yesterday. So now we get the opportunity to welcome Ole Miss into Tiger Stadium. Exciting matchup between two teams that are certainly familiar with themselves, and certainly a team that we have a great deal of respect for. Lane's done a great job there, and certainly a team that is prolific offensively and playing great defense right now. And I think that that's the biggest, I would say, if you look at their team last year to this year, they're just playing great defense, coupled with the weapons that they have on the offensive side of the ball. So we've got a great challenge in front of us. Jackson Dart, obviously we know about him as a 3-year starter now. Trey Harris, an outstanding wide receiver. Great depth at the running back position. And then defensively, I think they're tops in the country. One of the top teams in terms of sacks. Love the linebackers, Paul, Daughtery. And then, of course, Ivy, Nolan, Walter Nolan. I think we all know about him in terms of what he's been able to do in this league. Off the edge, Princely is a guy that really balances their pass rush. And then, in the backfield, Trey Amos is an outstanding corner right here from Louisiana. So it's a very talented football team and deserving of their national ranking. And, again, a great challenge for us. We're excited about it. We know where we're at in terms of the next 7 weeks. We have SEC opponents. Our team is, again, excited about the challenge of playing at home in Tiger Stadium. And looking forward to a Saturday night in Tiger Stadium on national television. That's why you come to LSU, and we're excited about the matchup. So that we'll open up to questions.
Brian, obviously, when you look at your defense, basically from this game last year to now, where do you think y'all have really improved, and where did you kind of want to work on during the bye week that you need to keep getting better moving forward?
Oh, my goodness. Obviously you're going to turn on the film from last year and you're going to look at it and go, okay, that's not what we want to be defensively. And, trying to do too many things. Players that, certainly would say that, from a coaching standpoint and a playing standpoint, we're much further along. That's not the same defense. So, look, the game comes down to when you're playing an up-tempo team like Ole Miss, you've got to get lined up. You got to get your cleats in the ground. You got to tackle. And I think we probably talked about this last year after the game. It didn't tackle very well, didn't get lined up, and it didn't play fundamentally sound football. And so, it starts with that premise, and then you move from there, right? Different looks. Try to get the quarterback off schedule, and at the end of the day, try to make any offense, regardless of what they do, one-dimensional, and that we'll try to do that again this year.
Coach, the scores, the parity this past Saturday, is that here to stay because of NIL, transfer portal, and your thoughts on the weekend scores?
Yeah, I think it's too easy to kind of just, have a sweeping generalization of what happened this weekend. But I will say this, that each weekend is a different weekend in college football. And doing it for as long as I have done it, I come at it each week with that vision of you can't assume anything when you're dealing with young men that can be easily distracted today. Because the distraction is the enemy of being able to do your job to the best of your ability when you need to do it. And so, look, across the board, there are really good players. Everybody's got scholarships. Everybody's invested in their program. So one thing that I will grant you is that, there are really good football teams across the country. And if you're not prepared to play your best, then certainly you can get beaten. And I think we saw that this weekend. But whether it's NIL or whether it's the transfer portal or, I don't know that that's necessarily the root cause of it. I think it's the investment in college football across the board. And the fact of the matter is it's so much easier to get distracted. There's so much information out there. And I think the teams that do a really good job of not getting distracted from week to week are the ones that can stay on course longer.
Coach, for your younger players, Deshaun Spears in the back end, Caden Durham, and a lot of other guys that have gotten action, what can the reset of a bye week do for them where maybe the first couple of weeks they're bright-eyed and obviously kind of, drinking through a fire hose, you could say? What can that reset do for them just to be able to carry them throughout the rest of the year?
Yeah, good question. I think what it allows them to do is look at the game from a perspective of you still have to be able to play it as if you were in high school. And so what I mean by that is you still have to play fast. You can't overanalyze this game. And I think when you're young, you have a tendency to take in too much information, and it slows you down. And both of those guys and their talent, they have to let their talent speak for themselves. Now, it doesn't mean you forget all your teachings and you don't trust what you've been taught, but there has to be that end of, I need to go play, and I need to let it go. And I think the bye week or the off week allows them to kind of look at it and say, you know what, I know what I'm doing. I've been coached. I have the technique down. Now I just need to let it go. And I think that that's the opportunity for them in the past week.
Hey, Brian. Last year you said this was kind of an evaluation game, right? And Wilson's question, I would ask just the opposite side of the ball. What did you learn from that game offensively that you feel like better prepares you to take on a team or any team that could score as much as they do?
You mean this game that we played last year against Ole Miss, what it told us?
Offensively.
I think, if you look at that game in itself, I mean, we had a lead, late in the game and we didn't finish. I mean, that's how we felt in that game. We didn't finish that game off. We had an opportunity to close that game out and we did not. We didn't make some plays late in the game that really could have put that game away. And I think that was kind of the disappointment we had. Look, when you play really good teams and you have the ball last, you need to finish opponents off. You need to control the ball. You need to be the last one with the football. Because when you have two prolific offenses and you have great offenses, you have really good quarterbacks, the team that's able to control it late in the game, to me, I think is the difference. And so I think when we look at it from our perspective is if we have the ball late in the game, we need to close out the game, whether it's running it, throwing it, whatever the case may be. Control the game at the end by closing it out.
Are Caden, CJ, and Zai expected to practice this week?
Yes.
All three?
Yes.
You've spoken some this season about just how the coordinators have really been kind of trying to learn the personnel packages and just guys that are, should be playing with whoever on the field at certain times. Just what did the bye week do, I guess, for you guys as a staff to kind of reevaluate and kind of assess what you want to do with the roster and kind of the personnel going into, obviously, the next 2 months of SEC play?
Yeah, I think, the first thing you do is an exhaustive self-scout, right? What are your tendencies? What tendencies do you need to break? what are you doing in the run game? What are you doing in the pass game? What are you doing relative to your fronts and coverages and pressures and third down? And so the first thing you're doing is an extensive self-scout. And are there any tendencies there that you can break? And are there things there that you're doing really well that you want to build on, or not so well that you need to, certainly work on in the bye week? Then it's the evaluation of, the body of work through those first 5 weeks. Who are the guys that have built that trust that you can put on the field? And so as you go into these 7 weeks of SEC opponents, those are the guys that you want on the field. So I think we've done, both from a technical and tactical standpoint, the work necessary, and then from a personnel standpoint, who are the guys that we want to put on the field. That's been really a lot of the work this past week.
You've talked about the back end of your defense a little bit. Would you like to get into the personnel you said you were going to use last week to maybe try to find that group, that pairing that you like in the safety position specifically?
Well, I think we found them. I think it now becomes, for us more than anything else, is what do those rotations look like? And I think I said this last week. I don't think anybody's in a position that they're going to play 70 plays, right? So, what do those rotations look like? Is it a first, second down rotation? Is it a third down? Is it a nickel dime? Is it a pass rush situation? Is it a short yardage? So it's really kind of delineating out who's on the field in what situations. And I think we've got a better understanding of that, and it's much more clear, moving forward.
What's the best way to put this? Ole Miss has been at times slow getting off the field, especially on some situations defensively, and there really isn't any legislation that sort of bars them from doing that and slowing down the pace of the game. Do you think there should be a solution to fixing situations where teams don't want to sort of use the quote, I don't say injury excuse, but potential injury excuse to slow down opponents and keep that gamesmanship sort of situation?
Yeah, the SEC has a policy regarding it. So there is a policy in place that was implemented by the commissioner relative to sportsmanship, and if there was any, faking of injuries in a deliberate fashion, that the SEC would take action on that. So I can leave that up to the SEC and let them evaluate that. Other than that, the officials shouldn't be involved in it. That's not their, purview. They've got to officiate a game. They can't decide who's injured or who's not injured. So I think that the SEC has a policy in place. They're evaluating it. They'll make a decision on that. As a coach, you coach your guys, and you try to play through any of those instances, and we let our policy from the SEC kind of handle any of those instances.
I've heard people say when you play Ole Miss, you don't want to get into a shootout like you guys did last year. Is there a balance between possessing the football and, hey, taking our shots and utilizing our offensive weapons and playing the best offense we can?
Those questions are, assuming that you have, strengths on either side of the ball. I mean, I've always felt as a head coach, you're trying to keep the points down, right? And you're going to do whatever's necessary to score touchdowns. But you're presented with the team that you have. And last year, clearly we were tilted one side, and we had to play, unfortunately, the game that way. I didn't like it, but that's what we had. And so we were in a situation last year where we were trying to outscore, and it's not the right way to play. It was the only way to play. I think there's much more balance in our football team, and we don't want to play that way. We want to play good defense. We want to keep the points down, and we want to score appropriately. So if you're asking the question relative to how it fits, each and every week, we don't want it to be a shootout. We want to play the appropriate level of defense that allows us to run our offense, that protects and plays complementary football. And I think I've said this in so many times. I felt like at times we didn't play complementary football, and I want to be able to play complementary football where our offense complements our defense and vice versa. And I know this is the long answer to the question, but that's really what we're looking to do here at LSU.
Yeah, Brian, do you feel like Kentucky kind of showed the blueprint on how to beat Ole Miss? I mean, ball control, and that seems to play into the strength of your offense. That's what you do best is long drives and take time off the clock and score.
Well, look, if you keep Jackson Dart, if you keep Trey Harris, if you keep that offense off the field, that is definitely part of the success that teams can and will have against an outstanding scheme. I mean, and a great play caller. Lane and Charlie do a great job, and they work together on that. But it's a really difficult offense. They have really good schemes. They're really sound and fundamental, and they take advantage of what you're doing. So clearly, if you can win that game of possession time, you are at a clear advantage. But you've got to score points too. You know, it can't be, always, just possession. You have to eventualize yourself in a sense of putting points on the board. So, yeah, you want to control the football, but you want to get into the end zone as many times as possible.
Over here, hey, maybe you can touch into your background on in politics and narrative on this one. Just wondering over the years, your impressions of Lane Kiffin as a communicator, both in the way he communicates to the public about his team and about opposing teams and high-profile figures in football.
I just think you have to look at how many followers he has on Twitter. I mean, I think that today, he's got a blue check mark, doesn't he? I mean, isn't that how you're regarded? Look, Lane has a positive outlook on the game, and he certainly has been a central figure in college football. He can poke fun at himself and others, and I think he's good for college football. No, I mean, we like to have fun back and forth, but at the end of the day, we're both college football coaches that enjoy, developing our teams, and we went against each other when he was at USC and I was at Notre Dame, and eventually when we get on the field, we're fierce competitors and we want to win.
And Coach over here, so 2 questions. The first one, how big of a week, I know it was asked earlier about some of the young players, right? Especially at the linebacker position too, Xavier Atkins, Devon Keys, getting them, just preaching, reiterating them since they're going to take a big step forward and getting some reps. And then also 100 years in Tiger Stadium, a big game against Ole Miss. Obviously LSU Ole Miss has had a lot of classics in Tiger Stadium. So can you just elaborate on just how big the atmosphere can be in the top 15 matchup as well?
Yeah, so, the fact of the matter is we have to play some young players. And Keys, Atkins, we've already mentioned the many freshmen that we're playing on defense, and we've already talked about, Caden Durham on the offensive side of the ball. So that's the reality that we're in, and I'm okay with that. And these guys have done a really nice job of coming on. That next form of development is at the linebacker position, and they're getting, I think, more and more comfortable with what we're doing and what Blake is teaching, and so it's likely that you're going to see more of them as the season unfolds. As it relates to 100 years in Tiger Stadium, I think what I'm excited and our players are excited about is an SEC game. Right, in Tiger Stadium. I think the energy, the excitement, not that it wasn't exciting for the other games, but this is different, right? I think it all just kind of rises to a new level when it's an SEC opponent in Tiger Stadium. It just, it mixes differently, and we're excited about that.
Brian, you've seen a couple of years of Jackson Dart. What have you seen as far as his growth, and how advantageous was this year's schedule for giving you looks at some of the things that he is capable of doing?
Well, let's start with Jackson Dart. I mean, just in his development, his toughness. I mean, he is, I saw him, as a true freshman at USC, and have seen his, physical and mental development, and, he's not afraid. I mean, he's fearless. And, it even seems when they need a big play, he's not afraid to tuck it and run, and even have his number called to run the football. I just think he's a tough kid, tough-minded. He's not afraid of the bright lights, and I think that's why when you talk about the really, really good football teams, they're going to have a quarterback he's not going to shrink when the moment is big, and that's Jackson Dart. The games that they played leading up, it would be the last couple of games, right? The first few games, you really couldn't tell. They were blowouts, and we saw more of the backup than we saw him. The last couple of games, you could see, is that what you were referring to? Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's some similarities there. Certainly, South Carolina, there's some run game there from the quarterback in South Alabama. Again, I think that this is much more about his ability to get the ball out on a timely fashion and certainly distribute, and he'll do a great job there.
Back to in January, what do you remember? What was your pitch to Blake Baker specifically, and what do you, within that sort of 48, 72-hour period, when did you feel like, okay, he's coming, we have our guy, because it was sort of a hectic few days there for him?
Well, first of all, it's identifying the right fit, and I felt like, he was the right fit for LSU, familiar with LSU, what we were looking for in the SEC, the opponents that we played, the standards of LSU defense. So I think it was just evaluating, the right fit at the right time. And then, that process of negotiating and getting him here was really about, bringing LSU back to the level that it should play defense at, and that challenge. And so it was really about him wanting to accept that challenge. And so that was what was the pitch. We were certainly going to make it an attractive position for him. But it was restoring LSU to the kind of defense that many know that it should and hasn't played at.
Having the weekend off, watching football yesterday, the whole world, it feels like, is talking about Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you may have talked to Paul about it last week. I'm sure you're not surprised. Why is he being successful at this next level, to the degree he is?
Well, first of all, I think the fit, with Cliff Kingsbury is an outstanding fit for him, and the kind of offense that they run. It's something that I think is seamless for him. It fits him very well. I would say that his work ethic continues to show. Not only is it outstanding here, it continues to be in the NFL. And I think his natural ability was real, right? It wasn't, he's a college, quarterback. He was a quarterback that could play at any level. His decision-making continues to be at a high level. His vision of the field, his ability to go through progressions, those are all things that we asked him to do here. and he's able to translate that at the next level. So it's been remarkable. I think everybody that's watching him is extremely impressed. I'm not surprised, but I will say it's a long season, and I think he's doing a great job running out of bounds and getting down, and I hope he continues to do that. But again, it's a long season, and he just needs to keep doing what he's doing because it's been incredible to watch.
You talked about the defensive improvement from Ole Miss on the offset there. Just wondering if you could expand maybe on the front seven. I mean, it really looks like Perkins and Ivy and Walter Nolan, all those guys are having a lot of success of creating some havoc in the backfield. Just maybe expand on what you've seen from them.
Well, I think, there's a couple of things there. I mean, certainly what I like about their defense is Paul and Daugherty. The two inside backers are really good. I mean, they do some really good things in terms of the front themselves. The Princely and Jared Ivey, they balance themselves out. Ivy's a lot like Savion. I mean, he's 275, 280 pounds. He's big and physical. Princely is more of a pass rusher, so you've got great balance there. And then you've got the big guys inside, and they've developed. I mean, they're better than they were last year. And so from a coaching standpoint, they've done a really good job of developing their players as well. This is not just, hey, we got them in the transfer portal and, they are who they are. They have developed them as well. So they're better football players across the board. So it's a really stout front. They move it around. They're active. It's a challenge, and they've made it a challenge for everybody they've played against.
Defensively, how important is communication in a game like this when Ole Miss is just ready to snap the ball at a moment's notice?
It's absolutely crucial. I mean, and a lot of it was, you saw us last year. We didn't get lined up in a number of instances. We had our nickel was the defensive end on a couple of plays. So we did not do a very good job of lining up and getting our cleats in the ground. I mentioned that earlier. We need to get set, and so. Sometimes that means, playing 11 guys, and this is what we're playing defensively, and let's just play. Don't get too complicated. Keep it simple. You know what? The old KISS theory, right? So, there's some of that, and then you'll have some time to do some other things, right? But we have to get back to playing against a team that plays up tempo. There are times that you just got to line up, and here we go. Your 11 against our 11. Let's block. Let's tackle. Great. Thank you.